Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the tangle of wires in front of him. He had been working for 16 hours straight and his body was screaming for rest. The environmental control system on the horizon's edge had decided to fail at the worst possible time, right when the ship was docked at Unity Station for the most important meeting in human history. Just a few more connections, Jake muttered to himself. His hands shook slightly as he twisted the wires together. He was not a diplomat or a soldier. He was just an engineer, someone who fixed things when they broke. But right now his job mattered because if the air systems failed, the whole diplomatic mission would be ruined. Unity Station was massive, a neutral meeting place built by several alien races who wanted to encourage peaceful contact between different species. The station floated in deep space far from any homeworld. It was here that humans were meeting the Velkari Empire for the first time, trying to establish peaceful relations with one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Jake did not care much about politics. He left that to Captain Blake and the diplomats. His world was machines, circuits, and systems that made sense. People were complicated. Machines were simple. You either fixed them or you did not. Finally, the last wire clicked into place. Jake ran a quick diagnostic check on his tablet. Green lights appeared across the screen. The system was working again. He let out a long breath and slumped against the wall. Every muscle in his body ached. Morrison to engineering, he said, tapping his communication device. Environmental systems are back online. Someone else can babysit them for a while. I'm done for the day. Copy that, Jake, Amy's voice came through. Lieutenant Amy Chen was his friend and the ship's security officer. Get some sleep. You've been working non-stop since we docked. Planning on it, Jake replied. He gathered his tools and made his way through the ship's corridors toward his quarters. The Horizon's Edge was not a large vessel, but it was home. He had spent 3 years on this ship, exploring distant stars and meeting strange new worlds. Usually he loved his job. Today, he just wanted to sleep. As he walked, he could hear excited chatter from crew members discussing the negotiations. Apparently, things were not going well. The Velkari were proud warriors, and they found some of the human customs insulting. Jake was glad he did not have to deal with that mess. He reached his quarters and palmed the door open. The lights were set to low, just the way he liked them. Jake did not even bother changing out of his work clothes. He kicked off his boots, fell onto his bed, and was asleep within seconds. Meanwhile, in the station's main conference hall, Empress Zaritha of the Velkari Empire was losing her patience. She stood 7 feet tall, with smooth purple skin that seemed to glow in the station's lights. Silver markings ran along her arms and face, symbols of her royal bloodline. Her eyes were a deep amber color, and right now they burned with anger. You dare suggest that my warriors should disarm in your presence? She demanded, her voice echoing through the chamber. This is an insult to the Velkari honor. Captain Blake held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. Your Majesty, we only meant that as a sign of trust between our people. We would disarm as well. Trust? Zaritha's laugh was bitter. Trust is earned through strength and honor, not through weakness. You humans know nothing of our ways, yet you presume to make demands. The Empress's second-in-command, Commander Thylin, placed a gentle hand on her arm. My Empress, perhaps we should take a moment to consider. Zaritha shook off the touch. There is nothing to consider. I will not sit here and be insulted by these newcomers who know nothing of the galaxy. She turned on her heel and strode toward the exit, her long robes flowing behind her. This meeting is over. The Velkari delegation hurried to follow their Empress. Captain Blake and the human diplomats stood in shocked silence. Dr. Sophie Martinez, the chief medical officer who had been observing the talks, shook her head. That went well, she said sarcastically. Zaritha moved through the station's corridors with long, angry strides. Her guards struggled to keep up. She was furious not just at the humans but at herself. She had hoped these newcomers might be different, might offer some new perspective on the endless war with the Drathkar that was slowly destroying her empire. Instead, they were just like all the others, full of rules and customs that made no sense. My Empress, where are you going? Thylin asked. To my quarters, Zaritha snapped. I need to be alone. She reached what she thought was her assigned suite and pressed her hand to the access panel. The door slid open. Zaritha was too angry to notice that the interior looked different from what she expected. The station's computer system, struggling to integrate Velkari and human software, had scrambled the room assignments. But she did not know that. The room was dark and quiet. Perfect. Zaritha removed her ceremonial robes and crown, setting them carefully aside. Underneath, she wore a simple sleeping garment. For just a few hours, she wanted to forget she was an empress. She wanted to forget the weight of leadership, the impossible decisions, and the war that never ended. She found the bed in the darkness and lay down on the far side, curling up with her back to the rest of the room. Exhaustion pulled at her immediately. She had not slept well in weeks, always worried about the negotiations, about her people, about everything. Within minutes, the Empress was asleep. Jake slept deeply, the kind of dreamless sleep that came from complete exhaustion. His body was recovering from the long day, his mind shut down and peaceful. Hours passed in quiet darkness. Then something changed. Jake's sleeping mind registered warmth nearby, a presence. In his sleep, he shifted position and his arm fell across something solid and warm. His body, seeking comfort unconsciously, moved closer to the warmth. Zaritha, also deep in sleep, felt the presence too. In her dreams, she was not an empress, but just a person, safe and protected. She unconsciously leaned back into the warmth behind her, seeking comfort she had not felt in years. More time passed. The station's artificial morning began, with lights slowly increasing in intensity throughout the corridors. Jake's internal clock, used to early shifts, started to pull him toward wakefulness. He became aware of warmth in his arms, the gentle rise and fall of breathing. His foggy mind assumed he was dreaming. Then his eyes cracked open, purple skin, silver markings. He was holding someone. Jake's eyes flew wide open. His heart began to pound. He was holding someone with purple skin and silver markings, someone much taller than any human, someone who was definitely not supposed to be in his bed. At that exact moment, the door to his quarters exploded open. 4 Velkari guards burst in, weapons raised, followed by Commander Thylan. They had been searching for their missing Empress all night, and the station's computer had finally corrected its error and showed them her actual location. "Get away from the Empress," Thylan roared. The shout woke Zaritha. Her eyes opened and she found herself being held by a human male, in a room that was definitely not her quarters. For one confused moment, she did not move, her mind trying to process what was happening. Then training took over. She rolled away from Jake and came to her feet in one smooth motion, her hand reaching for a weapon that was not there. Jake threw his hands up. "Wait, I can explain. I do not know what is happening." More guards poured into the room. Captain Blake's voice came over the station's communication system, demanding to know what was going on. Alarms began to sound throughout the docking area. Zaritha stared at Jake, her amber eyes wide with shock and confusion. Jake stared back, equally confused and terrified. "Arrest him," Zaritha commanded, her voice steady despite her confusion. "Arrest him now!" Within seconds, Jake was surrounded by Velkari guards. Amy appeared at the door, her weapon drawn, demanding that they release her crew member. More human security arrived. The corridor outside became a standoff between armed humans and Velkari. Captain Blake pushed through the crowd, his face pale. "Your Majesty, please let us sort this out peacefully." Zaritha pulled her robes around herself, her royal composure returning. "This human violated the sanctity of the royal person. Under Velkari law, that is punishable by death. I did not do anything," Jake protested as guards grabbed his arms. "I fell asleep in my own quarters. I do not even know how you got here." But no one was listening. The situation was spiraling out of control. An hour ago, the worst problem was failed negotiations. Now it looked like war might break out right here on Unity Station. Jake was dragged from his quarters toward the station's detention area. Amy followed, trying to get to him, but the Velkari guards blocked her way. Captain Blake was speaking rapidly into his communication device, calling for emergency diplomatic intervention. Zaritha stood in the corridor, watching the chaos unfold around her. Her mind was racing. She had been in danger, yes, but she had felt no fear when she woke in that human's arms. Instead, for just a brief moment before full awareness returned, she had felt peaceful, safe. That made no sense at all, and that scared her more than anything else. Jake sat in the detention cell and tried not to panic. The walls were a smooth gray metal, and the energy barrier at the front hummed quietly. He had never been arrested before. He had never even gotten a serious violation on any ship he served on. Now he was sitting in an alien prison, accused of something he did not even understand, and people were talking about execution. "This is insane," he muttered, running his hands through his hair. "Completely insane." The door at the end of the corridor opened and Amy appeared. She walked quickly to his cell, her face tight with worry. A Valkyrie guard stood nearby, watching them carefully. "Jake," Amy said softly. "Are you okay?" "Am I okay?" "Amy, they want to kill me for sleeping in my own bed." Jake stood and moved closer to the barrier. "Please tell me someone figured out what happened." "Dr. Martinez is going through the station's computer logs right now. Captain Blake is in emergency talks with the Valkyrie delegation." Amy glanced at the guard, then lowered her voice. "Jake, I believe you. Everyone on the ship believes you. But the Valkyrie have strict laws about their royal family. The Empress is considered sacred. What happened, even if it was an accident, is a serious crime to them." Jake felt his stomach drop. "So even if we prove it was the station's mistake, it does not matter?" "Only the Empress can grant you pardon," Amy said. "And from what I hear, she is not in a forgiving mood." "Great." Jake sat back down on the metal bench. "Just great." Amy stayed a few more minutes trying to reassure him, but they both knew the situation was bad. When she left, Jake was alone with his thoughts, and they were not good thoughts. Meanwhile, Empress Zaretha had returned to her correct quarters on the Valkyrie side of the station. She had bathed and changed into fresh robes, but she still felt unsettled. Commander Thylon and several advisors stood before her, waiting for her decision. "The humans claim it was a computer error," Thylon said. "They say their engineer had no knowledge that you were in the room." "That changes nothing," one of the advisors declared. "The law is clear. He violated the royal person. The punishment is death." Zaretha sat in silence. She should feel angry. She should demand immediate justice. But something was stopping her, a feeling she could not name. When she had woken in that human's arms before the guards burst in, she had felt something she had not experienced in years. Peace. Actual peace. "Leave me," she commanded. "All of you." "I must think." "But my Empress," I said, "leave me." Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. The advisors bowed and hurried out. Thylon hesitated at the door. "You are troubled," Thylon observed. It was not a question. "I am always troubled," Zaretha replied. "That is the burden of leadership. This is different." Thylon stepped closer. "What happened in that room?" Zaretha looked at her oldest friend and most trusted commander. They had fought together for decades, survived countless battles against the Drathkar. If anyone could understand, it would be Thylon. "I felt at peace," Zaretha admitted quietly. "For the first time in years, I felt truly at rest. That should not be possible. Not with a stranger, not with a human." Thylon's expression grew thoughtful. "Perhaps you should speak with High Priestess Narration." "The priestess? Why?" "Because she is wise in matters of the spirit, and because there are old prophecies that she guards, known only to her order and the royal bloodline." Thylon bowed. "I will send for her." An hour later, High Priestess Narration entered the Empress's quarters. She was ancient by Valkyrie standards. Her purple skin faded to a lighter shade, her silver markings intricate with age, but her eyes were sharp and knowing. "You wish to see me, Empress?" Narasul's voice was gentle. "Thylon suggested I speak with you about what happened today." Zaretha gestured for the priestess to sit. She mentioned prophecies. Narasul settled into a chair with a soft smile. "She speaks of the prophecy of the Starwalker. It is old, written long before even my time. Most believe it is merely legend." "Tell me about it." The priestess closed her eyes, reciting from memory. "In the time of greatest darkness, when the empire bleeds and the Empress stands alone, a Starwalker from beyond shall cross the void. They shall find her invulnerability, and they shall share rest without conflict. Their bond shall be forged not in fire, but in the quiet spaces between stars. And through this union, the weapon that ends the war shall be revealed, not of metal, but of unity." Zaretha sat very still. A Starwalker from beyond? That could mean anything. Could it? Narasul opened her eyes. "The humans come from beyond our known space. They walk among the stars as we do. And you, my Empress, are very much alone, bearing the weight of a war that cannot be won through force alone." "This is foolishness," Zaretha said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You speak of prophecy, but I deal in reality, in weapons and fleets and strategy. And how well has that served us?" Narasul asked gently. "We have fought the Drathkar for 3 generations. Billions have died. Our empire shrinks while our enemy grows stronger. Perhaps reality is not enough. Perhaps we need something more. Zaretha stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, stars filled the darkness of space. Countless points of light representing worlds she would never see, lives she would never know. Somewhere out there, the Drathkar were preparing for the next attack. Somewhere out there, more Velkari would die tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. Even if the prophecy is real, Zaretha said quietly, I cannot simply pardon him. The nobles, the council, they expect me to uphold our laws. If I show weakness, they will question my authority. Is mercy weakness? Nirasul asked. Or is it the greatest strength? Before Zaretha could answer, an alert chimed. Thylan's voice came through the communication system. My Empress, the human doctor, has found evidence. She requests permission to present it to you. Send her in, doctor. Martinez entered carrying a data tablet. She bowed respectfully, though Zaretha could see the woman was nervous. Behind her, Captain Blake stood at the doorway. Your Majesty, Sophie began. I have reviewed the station's computer logs. The error that caused the room assignment confusion has been documented. Your access code was mistakenly linked to Mr. Morrison's quarters due to a software integration failure. Here is the complete timeline. She handed the tablet to Zaretha, who studied the information carefully. The data was clear. The human engineer had done nothing wrong. He had simply fallen asleep in his assigned quarters. She had entered using what she believed was her own access code. This proves his innocence of intent, Sophie continued. Under most legal systems, intent matters. Not under Velkari law, Zaretha replied, but her tone was less harsh than before. However, I appreciate your thoroughness, Doctor. Captain Blake stepped forward. Your Majesty, Jake Morrison is a good man. He has served honorably for years. He would never intentionally cause harm or disrespect. I'm asking you, as one leader to another, to show mercy. Zaretha looked at the captain, then at the doctor, then at the data tablet. She thought about the prophecy, about the feeling of peace she had experienced, about the endless war that was destroying her people. I will speak with the prisoner, she announced. Alone, my Empress. I must advise against... Thylan began. I am aware of your concern, Commander. But my decision is made. I will interrogate him personally before passing judgment back in the detention area. Jake was trying to stay calm when he heard footsteps. He expected Amy or maybe Captain Blake. Instead, Empress Zaretha herself appeared at his cell, flanked by two guards who remained at a distance. Jake stood quickly. Up close, she was even more imposing than he remembered. Tall, regal, with those intense amber eyes that seemed to look right through him, Your Majesty, he said, not sure if he should bow or stay still. Sit, Zaretha commanded. When Jake sat, she did something unexpected. She gestured for a chair to be brought, and she sat as well, studying him in silence. The silence stretched. Jake fidgeted. The Empress did not move. Finally, Jake could not take it anymore. Look, I know this looks bad, but I swear I had no idea you were there. I worked a 16-hour shift, went to my assigned quarters, and collapsed. That is the whole story. Not very exciting. I know you are not afraid of me, Zaretha observed. I am terrified of you, Jake corrected. But I am also too tired to pretend otherwise. Your Majesty, I am just an engineer. I fix air systems and repair broken equipment. I do not do politics or schemes or whatever you think happened. I just wanted to sleep despite herself. Zaretha felt her lips twitch. There was something honest about this human, something genuine. He did not grovel or plead. He just stated facts. Tell me about yourself, she said. Jake blinked. What you heard me. Tell me who you are, Jake Morrison. Not what you do, but who you are, so Jake talked. He told her about growing up on a small colony world, about losing his family when a solar flare destroyed the settlement's shields. He talked about how he threw himself into learning about machines because machines made sense when nothing else did. He talked about joining the exploration service because he wanted to see what else was out there among the stars. Zaretha listened, and something unexpected happened. She began to talk too, about the weight of leadership, about the war that never ended, about feeling alone even surrounded by thousands of people. They talked for hours. The guards shifted nervously, unsure what to make of their Empress sitting and conversing with a prisoner. But neither Jake. Working with Velkari engineers was not what Jake expected. He thought they would be cold and distant, maybe even hostile. Instead, they were curious and surprisingly cooperative. They had been dealing with the same computer integration problems and were frustrated by the lack of progress. This connection point keeps failing, a Velkari engineer named Kelmar explained, pointing to a junction box. Our power systems operate on different frequencies than yours. Jake examined the problem. We need a buffer system, something that can translate between the two frequencies without losing efficiency. Is such a thing possible? Maybe, Jake said, pulling out his toolkit. Let me try something. Amy watched from nearby, her role as his guard mostly ceremonial now. 3 weeks had passed since the incident, and life on Unity Station had settled into an unusual routine. The human and Velkari delegations were cautiously working together again, though trust was still fragile. What nobody expected was how often Empress Zaritha found reasons to visit the engineering sections. She would arrive with Commander Thielen, claim she was inspecting the integration work, and somehow end up in conversations with Jake that lasted hours. Your Empress comes here a lot, Kelmar commented one day after Zaritha had left. This is unusual, is it? Jake asked, trying to sound casual. Very unusual, Kelmar confirmed. She has not shown personal interest in technical matters in many years. She leaves such things to us. Jake did not know what to say to that. He had noticed the pattern, too. At first, he thought she was checking on him, making sure he was not causing trouble. But their conversations had moved far beyond work. They talked about everything. Philosophy, history, what made a good leader, what it meant to be human or Velkari. He was starting to look forward to her visits. That probably was not wise. That evening, Jake was alone in one of the workshop spaces trying to solve a particularly stubborn problem with a circuit relay when the door opened. He looked up and saw Zaritha entering alone. Your Majesty, Jake said, setting down his tools. I did not expect you this late. I could not sleep, Zaritha admitted. She looked different out of her formal robes, wearing simpler clothing that was almost casual. I thought I might find you here. Amy mentioned you often work late. Amy talks about me. She is protective of you. It is admirable. Zaritha moved to the viewport that looked out at the stars. Do you ever wonder what is out there? Beyond what we know? Jake joined her at the window. All the time. That is why I became an explorer. There is always something new to discover. I used to think like that, Zaritha said softly. Before I became Empress. Before the war consumed everything. Now I only see threats in enemies, strategic positions, and military concerns. I have forgotten how to see the wonder. You have a lot of responsibility, Jake said. That changes how you see things. Does it have to? She turned to look at him. When I'm with you, I remember what it was like to be curious instead of cautious. To talk about ideas instead of tactics. You remind me of who I was before the crown. Jake felt his heart beat faster. I am just an engineer. No, Zaritha said. You are more than that. You are someone who sees possibilities instead of problems. Someone who builds bridges instead of walls. They stood in silence, looking at each other. Jake knew he should step back, should remember the distance between them. She was an Empress. He was nobody important, but something in her eyes made him stay. I should go, Zaritha said finally, but she did not move. This is not appropriate. We should not be alone together. Probably not, Jake agreed. But I am glad you came. Zaritha smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. So am I. Over the next few weeks, their meetings became more frequent. Sometimes they talked about work. Sometimes they shared meals, with Zaritha explaining Velkari cuisine while Jake introduced her to human food. She found human chocolate fascinating and slightly addictive. Captain Blake noticed the growing friendship and pulled Jake aside one day. Be careful, he warned. This situation is complicated. The Velkari nobles are already suspicious of her decisions regarding you. If this becomes something more than friendship, there could be serious political consequences. It is just friendship, Jake insisted. We talk, that is all, is it? Captain Blake gave him a knowing look. Jake, I am not blind. Neither are the people watching both of you. Just be careful. Jake wanted to argue, but he could not, because the captain was right. What he felt for Zaritha was becoming more than friendship, and he suspected she felt the same way. But what could they do about it? They were from different worlds, different species. She was an empress with an empire to rule. He was just an engineer. Then the Drathkar attacked. The alert sirens woke Jake from sleep. He rolled out of bed and grabbed his emergency kit, running toward his duty station. The corridor was full of crew members doing the same thing. Amy appeared beside him, her face grim. What is happening? Jake shouted over the alarms. Drathkar Strike Force, Amy replied. 6 warships. They are attacking the station. Unity Station shook as weapons fire struck the shields. Jake reached the engineering section and immediately started checking systems. The Velkari engineers were already there, working frantically. Shield generators are overloading, Kelmar called out. We need to reroute power. Jake ran to the main console. The Drathkar were concentrating their fire on the station's central hub, right where both the human and Velkari delegations were staying. If the shields failed there, hundreds would die. I need to access the Empress's flagship systems, Jake said. Their power grid could supplement ours. That requires command authorization, Kelmar said. We do not have time to get it. Then I'm going over there, Jake decided. Physically connect the systems. It is the only way. That is suicide, Amy protested. The docking tube is exposed to fire. Do you have a better idea? Another explosion rocked the station. Jake did not wait for an answer. He grabbed an emergency suit and ran toward the docking area. Amy and Kelmar followed, neither willing to let him go alone. The docking tube connecting Unity Station to the Velkari flagship was a nightmare. Through the transparent sections, Jake could see the battle raging outside. Drathkar ships were everywhere, firing their weapons in coordinated strikes. The Velkari fleet was fighting back, but they were outnumbered. Halfway across the tube, the shields flickered. Jake felt the temperature drop as the atmospheric containment weakened. He kept running, his breath coming in gasps inside the emergency suit. They reached the flagship and Jake immediately headed for the engineering section. The Velkari crew looked surprised to see humans, but Kelmar quickly explained the situation. They had no time for protocol or permissions. Jake connected his portable terminal to the flagship's power grid. Lines of code scrolled across his screen. He had never worked with Velkari systems this complex before, but the principles were the same. Find the connection points, establish the link, balance the load. Got it, Jake shouted. Initiating power transfer now. On Unity Station, the shield strength indicators climbed. The central hub's defenses stabilized. It was working. Then a Drathkar weapon struck the flagship directly. The ship shuddered violently. A power conduit near Jake exploded, sending sparks and plasma spraying across the room. Jake threw himself backward, but not fast enough. The edge of the blast caught his left side, burning through his suit. Pain exploded across his shoulder and ribs. Jake screamed and fell to the deck. Amy was beside him instantly, using an emergency patch to seal his suit. Through the haze of pain, Jake kept his hands on the terminal, maintaining the connection. Jake, let go, Amy shouted. You are hurt. Not yet, Jake gasped. Need to stabilize the transfer. Just a few more seconds. Those seconds felt like hours. Finally, the connection locked in place, automatic systems taking over. Jake's hands fell away from the controls and he collapsed completely. The Velkari medical team arrived. Jake barely registered being moved, treated. His burns sprayed with some kind of foam that reduced the pain to a dull ache. He drifted in and out of consciousness. When his awareness sharpened again, he was in the flagship's medical bay. Dr. Martinez was there, working with Velkari doctors. And beside his bed, refusing to move, was Empress Zaritha, you fool, she said softly when she saw his eyes open. You beautiful, brave fool, did it work? Jake's voice was rough. The shields held Zaritha, confirmed. The Drathkar retreated. You saved hundreds of lives, including mine. The central hub would have fallen without the extra power good, Jake said. Then, because the pain medication was making him honest, he added, could not let anything happen to you. Zaritha took his hand carefully, avoiding his injuries. Why did you do this? You could have died because people needed help, Jake said simply. Your people, my people, does it matter? They needed help, so I helped. Something in Zaritha's expression changed. She looked at Commander Thylin, who stood nearby. Thylin nodded slowly, understanding passing between them. The prophecy, Thylin said quietly. He did not hesitate to protect us, even at cost to himself. What prophecy? Jake asked, confused. Zaritha squeezed his hand gently. Rest now, we will talk when you are healed. Stay, Jake asked, his eyes already closing. Please, I am not going anywhere, Zaritha promised, and she did not. While Jake slept, while the doctors worked, while the station and fleet assessed the damage from the battle. Jake spent 3 days in the medical bay. The burns were healing well thanks to Velkari medical technology, which was far more advanced than human methods. Dr. Martinez was fascinated and spent hours learning from the Velkari doctors. Jake mostly slept, his body recovering from the trauma. When he finally felt well enough to sit up and eat solid food, he found Zaritha sitting in the chair beside his bed. Again, she had been there every time he woke up. "Do you ever sleep?" Jake asked. "I rest when you rest," Zaritha replied. She looked tired, Jake noticed. Dark circles under her amber eyes. Her silver markings seemed less bright than usual. "You should go take care of your empire," Jake said gently. "I am fine now. My empire can survive a few days without constant attention." Zaritha stood and moved to the viewport. "Besides, my presence here is causing quite a scandal. I might as well see it through." "A scandal?" "The nobles are upset. They say it is inappropriate for me to show such concern for a human, especially one who is not even a diplomat or military officer. Just an engineer." She said the last part with a small smile. "They do not understand why I'm here." Jake felt his chest tighten. "Why are you here?" Zaritha turned to face him. For a long moment she just looked at him, her expression conflicted. Then she made a decision. "Because when I thought you might die, I realized something. I care for you, Jake Morrison. More than is wise. More than is politically convenient. More than I have cared for anyone in a very long time." Jake's breath caught. "Your Majesty, Zaritha," she interrupted. "When we are alone, call me Zaritha. I'm tired of being just an empress. With you, I feel like a person again." "Zaritha," Jake said slowly, testing how it felt. "I care about you too. But I do not know what that means. We are from different worlds. You have responsibilities I cannot imagine. I am nobody special. You are special to me." Zaritha moved back to his bedside. "That is what matters. Though I confess I do not know what to do about these feelings either. My position makes everything complicated." Before Jake could respond, Commander Thylin entered the medical bay. Her expression was serious. "Forgive the interruption, Empress, but the Council demands an audience. They say it is urgent." Zaritha sighed. "Very well. I suppose I cannot avoid them forever?" She looked at Jake. "We will continue this conversation later." The Velkari Council was not happy. Zaritha sat on her throne in the flagship's conference chamber, listening to their complaints with growing irritation. "This attachment to a human is unseemly," one noble declared. "The people question your judgment, do they?" Zaritha's voice was cold. "Or do you?" "We have concerns," another council member said carefully. "The war with the Drathkar continues. Our people need leadership that is focused, not distracted by personal matters. They need a strong empress who will take a Velkari mate and produce an heir." "I see." Zaritha stood, and her presence filled the room. "You wish me to set aside my own feelings for political convenience? To take a mate I do not love for the sake of tradition. Tell me, how has tradition served us in this war? We have fought for 3 generations using the same strategies, the same thinking, and we are losing. Perhaps it is time to try something different." "You speak of the prophecy," High Priestess Narasul said from her seat. Unlike the nobles, she looked pleased. "The Starwalker who will help end the war." "The prophecy is myth," a noble scoffed. "We need real solutions, not ancient stories." "The prophecy speaks of unity," Narasul replied. "Of bonds formed in unexpected ways. This human risked his life to save us. He did not hesitate, did not ask for payment or reward. He simply acted. Is that not the kind of ally we need?" The council erupted in argument. Zaritha let them talk for a while, then raised her hand for silence. "I will make my own decisions regarding my personal life," she announced. "But I understand your concerns about the succession and the war. I will think on these matters." This council is dismissed. After they left, only Thylin and Narasul remained. "That went well," Thylin said dryly. "They are afraid," Narasul observed. "Change frightens them, and you are changing, my Empress. They see it. Am I wrong to feel this way?" Zaritha asked. "Is it selfish to want something for myself, even as my people suffer?" "Is it selfish to want happiness?" Narasul countered. "Or is it perhaps what you need to be a better leader? A heart that remembers joy can better understand hope." Meanwhile, Jake was having his own difficult conversation. Amy and Captain Blake had come to visit, and they both looked concerned. "You know this cannot end well," Captain Blake said bluntly. "Jake, I like you. You are a good engineer and a good man. But you are playing with fire here. She is an empress. There are political ramifications to everything she does, I know," Jake said. But I cannot help how I feel. Can you really see a future here? Amy asked gently. What would that even look like? You living on her flagship? Her giving up her throne? Neither of those options seems realistic. Jake knew they were right. He had been thinking about the same problems. But his heart did not care about logic. Maybe there is no future, Jake admitted. Maybe this is just a moment, something that cannot last. But does that mean it is not worth experiencing? Should I push away something beautiful just because it might hurt later, Captain Blake? And Amy exchanged glances. They both knew that look on Jake's face. He had already made his decision, even if he did not realize it yet. That night, Jake was cleared to leave the medical bay. He moved slowly, his injuries still healing, but he was tired of being confined. He made his way to one of the observation decks on the flagship, a quiet spot where crew members went to think. He found Zaritha there, standing alone at the window. Could not sleep either? Jake asked. Sleep has been difficult lately, Zaritha admitted. My mind will not rest. Jake stood beside her, both of them looking out at the stars. Your counsel is right, you know. This is complicated, probably impossible. Probably, Zaritha agreed. But I find I do not care as much as I should about what is proper or possible. For 40 years I have done what was expected, what was needed, what was required. I have sacrificed everything for my empire. Is it so wrong to want something just for myself? No, Jake said softly. It is not wrong. Zaritha turned to face him fully. If I asked you to stay, not as an engineer, not as a temporary assignment, but as part of my life, what would you say? Jake's heart pounded. This was the moment. He could step back, make excuses, protect himself from the pain that might come. Or he could be honest. I would say yes, Jake answered. Even knowing it will be difficult. Even knowing people will disapprove. Even knowing I might not fit into your world. I would still say yes. Zaritha reached out and touched his face gently, careful of his healing injuries. The Velkhari have a bonding ritual. It is sacred, reserved for those who wish to join their lives together. It creates a connection between souls, allowing partners to share thoughts and feelings. No human has ever undergone this ritual. We do not even know if it would work with your species. Are you asking me to bond with you? Jake could barely believe what he was hearing. I am telling you it is an option. Zaritha corrected. If you truly want to be part of my life, this is how it would be done in Velkhari culture. But it is permanent, Jake. Once bonded, we would be connected for life. You would be formally recognized as my chosen partner. There would be no hiding, no privacy. Everyone would know. And your council? The nobles, they will object loudly, Zaritha said with a slight smile. But the choice is mine to make. An empress may choose her own bond partner. It is one of the few absolute rights I possess. They can complain, but they cannot stop it. Jake took a deep breath. This was insane. A month ago, he was just an engineer, living a simple life, fixing machines. Now he was considering a permanent bond with an alien empress, joining his life to someone from another world, stepping into a political situation he barely understood. It was absolutely insane when Jake asked, "When can we do this ritual?" Zaritha's eyes widened. "You are certain?" "No," Jake admitted. "I am terrified, but I am also more certain about this than I have been about anything in my life. I do not know how we will make this work. I do not know how to be the partner of an empress. But I know I want to try. So yes, I'm certain." For the first time since Jake met her, Zaritha looked truly happy. Not the diplomatic smile or the leader's confident expression, but genuine joy that transformed her entire face. 3 days, she said. The bonding ritual requires preparation, both physical and spiritual. High Priestess Narasul will guide us through the process. But Jake, once we announce this intention, there is no going back. The political consequences will begin immediately, I understand. Do you? Zaritha looked serious again. There will be those who see you as a threat, others who see you as a tool to use against me. Your life will never be simple again. You will have enemies you have never met, face dangers you cannot imagine. Are you truly ready for that? Jake thought about his quiet life as an engineer, the simplicity he was giving up, the safety he was leaving behind. Then he looked at Zaritha, at the woman who had somehow become the center of his world in just a few short weeks. As long as I face it with you, Jake said. I am ready for anything. Zaritha closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was gentle and careful, mindful of his injuries but full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Jake laughed softly. The announcement sent shockwaves through both the Velkhari Empire and human territories. Empress Zaritha, The iron-willed leader who had ruled for 40 years was bonding with a human. A simple engineer. The news spread across the galaxy in hours. Jake spent those 3 days preparing for the ritual while dealing with the fallout. The hate messages started almost immediately. Some Velkari sent threats. Some humans accused him of being a traitor or a political pawn. Captain Blake assigned security to him permanently, not just Amy, but a full team. "Are you okay?" Amy asked as she walked with Jake to another preparation session with High Priestess Narration. "Honestly, I am terrified," Jake admitted, "but also excited. Does that make sense?" "Not really," Amy said with a smile, "but I am happy for you. You deserve this, Jake, both of you do." The bonding ritual required both physical and spiritual preparation. Narration explained the process carefully. The ritual would join their minds temporarily, allowing them to share memories, emotions, and thoughts. If the bond took, it would create a permanent connection. "I must warn you," Narration said seriously. "No human has attempted this. We do not know if your mind can handle the connection. There is risk involved." "I understand," Jake replied. He sat in the temple chamber, breathing in the incense that was meant to calm the mind. Around him, ancient Velkari symbols glowed softly. "I accept the risk." Meanwhile, Zaritha was dealing with her council's rage. They had called an emergency session and the throne room was packed with angry nobles. "This is madness," Lord Varthok shouted. "A human? You would bind yourself to a human when Velkari nobles would be honored to stand by your side?" "I would bind myself to the one I choose," Zaritha replied calmly. "As is my right." "This weakens the Empire," Lady Siltara argued. "The people need to see strength, not sentiment." "We are at war." "And perhaps that is exactly why I am doing this," Zaritha said. She stood, her presence commanding silence. "For 3 generations we have fought the Drathkar using the same methods, the same thinking. We are losing, slowly but surely. Jake Morrison showed me something different. He showed me that strength is not only found in weapons and warfare. Sometimes strength is found in compassion, in reaching across divides and choosing hope over fear." "Pretty words." Varthok sneered. "But words do not win wars." "No, but new ideas might," Zaritha countered. "This human saw a problem that we did not see. He created a solution that saved hundreds of lives. He did not hesitate to risk himself for people not his own. That is the kind of thinking we need. That is the kind of partner I need." High Priestess Narration stepped forward. "The prophecy speaks clearly. The Star Walker will bring about the weapon that ends the war. Not a weapon of metal, but of unity. Perhaps this bond is the first step toward that unity." "You expect us to believe in ancient prophecies?" Lady Siltara scoffed. "I expect you to believe in your Empress," Narration replied firmly. "She has led you through 4 decades of war. She has earned the right to make her own choices." The council argued for hours, but ultimately they could not stop it. The law was clear. The Empress had the right to choose her bond partner. They could disapprove, but they could not prevent it. The day of the bonding ritual arrived. It would be broadcast across the Empire, a public ceremony as tradition demanded. Jake dressed in ceremonial clothes that felt strange and uncomfortable. His hands shook as he fastened the clasps. "Nervous?" Captain Blake asked. He had come to offer support. "Beyond nervous," Jake admitted. "Captain, what if this does not work? What if my human brain cannot handle the connection?" "Then we will deal with it," Captain Blake said firmly. "But Jake, I have watched you solve impossible problems before. You will find a way through this too." The ceremony took place in the flagship's largest chamber. Hundreds attended in person, while billions watched across the Empire. Jake walked through the crowd, feeling every eye on him. Some looked curious, others hostile, but most just looked confused. Zaritha waited at the center of the chamber, wearing traditional bonding robes of deep purple with silver threads. She looked beautiful and terrifying at the same time. When Jake reached her, she took his hands. "Are you ready?" she whispered. "No," Jake whispered back. "But let us do it anyway." Narration began the ceremony, chanting in the old Velkari language. She painted symbols on their foreheads with luminescent paint. Then she gave them each a cup of ceremonial drink, something that would open their minds to the connection. Jake drank. It tasted bitter and made his tongue tingle. The world began to feel distant, like he was floating slightly above his own body. "Join hands," Narration instructed. "Look into each other's eyes. Open your minds. Let the bond form." Jake stared into Zaritha's amber eyes. At first nothing happened. Then slowly he began to feel something. a presence at the edge of his awareness. It was Zaretha, but not her body. Her mind, her essence. The connection grew stronger. Jake felt memories that were not his own flooding through him. He saw Zaretha as a young princess full of hope and dreams. He felt her grief when she lost her parents and took the throne too young. He experienced her loneliness, the weight of leadership, the endless burden of decisions where any choice meant someone died. He felt her love for her people, her desperation to end the war, her exhaustion that went soul deep, and he felt the moment she met him, the confusion and then the unexpected peace, the growing affection that scared her because it made her vulnerable. But it was not just one way. Zaretha was experiencing his memories too, his happy childhood on the colony, the terror when the shields failed and the solar flare struck, his guilt at surviving when his family did not, his years of throwing himself into work to avoid dealing with pain, his loneliness that matched hers, his first sight of her, the fear and then the curiosity, his growing feelings that he tried to deny because they seemed impossible. The memories flowed faster, overlapping, mixing. For a moment, Jake could not tell where he ended and Zaretha began. They were one mind, one soul, experiencing everything together. Then just as suddenly they were separate again, but not completely. Jake could still feel Zaretha there at the back of his mind, a warm presence, a connection that felt right and natural. The bond is complete, Narration announced, her voice full of wonder. I can see it. The human mind adapted. The connection formed. This is unprecedented. The chamber erupted in reactions. Some cheered, some protested, but most just stared in shock. A human and a Velkari successfully bonded. It should not have been possible. Jake and Zaretha looked at each other, both understanding something profound had happened. They could feel each other's emotions now, sense each other's thoughts if they focused. It was strange and wonderful and slightly overwhelming. I love you, Zaretha said aloud, no longer afraid to admit it publicly. My Starwalker, my chosen partner. I love you too, Jake replied, his voice carrying across the chamber. My Empress, my bondmate. In the days that followed, Jake learned what it meant to be bonded to an Empress. His life was no longer his own. Security followed him everywhere. His every action was scrutinized. Some Velkari treated him with respect now, others with suspicion. The human response was equally mixed. Some called him a hero, others a fool. But through the bond, Jake and Zaretha supported each other. When the pressure became too much, they could share the burden. When doubts crept in, they could feel each other's certainty. They were learning to be partners in every sense. 1 month after the bonding, Jake was working with a team that included both human and Velkari engineers. They were developing new integration protocols, trying to make their technologies work better together. During a break, Kelmar approached him. I doubted you, the Velkari admitted. I thought a human bonding with our Empress was wrong. But watching you work, seeing how you bring our peoples together, I am beginning to understand. You see possibilities we miss? We all see different things, Jake replied. That is why working together makes us stronger. That conversation gave Jake an idea. That night he shared it with Zaretha through their bond, letting her feel his excitement. What if that is the answer? Jake said aloud, pacing their shared quarters. Not defeating the Drathkar, but understanding them. The war started from a misunderstanding, right? What if it continues because we never tried to actually communicate? Zaretha felt his enthusiasm through the bond, but also her own doubt. The Drathkar have shown no interest in peace. They attack without warning, without mercy, because they think you are the enemy, Jake argued. But what if you showed them something different? What if we together reached out, not as Velkari or human, but as something new, a symbol of unity? It is a beautiful idea, Zaretha said softly, but dangerous. The Drathkar could see it as weakness. They could attack during negotiations. Then we make sure we are protected, Jake said. But we have to try. Zaretha, I can feel through our bond how tired you are of war, how much you want peace. What if this is the chance? Zaretha was quiet for a long time, thinking. Then she made a decision. Very well. We will send a message to the Drathkar leadership. We will offer peace talks with humans as neutral mediators. If they attack, then at least we know we tried. The message was sent. For weeks there was no response. The council mocked the idea as foolish. But Jake and Zaretha waited, hoping.